Welcome everyone, I'm Jai Sugrim.
And I'm Janet Miranda.
We all know what it's like to have a great idea and the desire to pursue our passions.
However, that initial surge of inspiration can quickly get buried under life's financial obligations and fulfilling our family duties. It's not easy to follow through and create a business from the ground up.
Which is precisely why we here at Motivations are excited about today's guests, who are entrepreneurs. We sit down and speak with our dynamic guests who have blazed their own trails in life and turned their passions into their work.
We've all dreamed of working for ourselves. Today, you'll hear about the journey from humble beginnings all the way to financial success.
Our guests will share inspirational stories of how they overcame obstacles, found funding, and persevered so that their dreams started manifesting.
According to WealthX, a leading market research company, 62% of US billionaires are self-made. That's an incredible accomplishment where learning to lead yourself can have a huge payoff.
According to the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor of 2019, 27 million Americans are starting or running new businesses. It requires great courage, resilience, and patience to succeed, and today's guests are truly walking the path of the heart.
According to the Wall Street Journal, the number of colleges offering degrees in entrepreneurship has increased 5 times from 1975 to 2013.
Clearly, schools empowering students to start their own businesses is increasingly important. We here at Motivations believe that a life well lived takes focus, determination, and consistent effort.
Which is exactly why we believe you'll be thrilled to learn from today's guests who have become masters of their own destiny.
Are you ready to be inspired?
Let's introduce our first guest now. Our next guest is a native of St. Louis, Missouri, and a graduate of Murray State University. He was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals and spent 4 seasons playing in the NFL. Although his love for sports ran deep in his veins, he knew that it was not his ultimate purpose. While in the pros, he became a real estate entrepreneur, restoring damaged properties and then opening them up for U.S. veterans. He also actively works with other pro athletes and entrepreneurs to promote leadership and financial security to underprivileged communities. In June of 2018, he passed on 4 NFL contracts to pursue his fastly growing tech startup, Politiscope. The app has over 11,000 downloads and seeks to educate voters by making factual, reliable, and easy to understand political information ready and available to all. By educating voters, Politiscope seeks to instill confidence in society and help them make informed decisions they really believe in. Forbes magazine listed him on their 30 under 30 list for 2020. This is a man to keep an eye on. Let's welcome Walter Powell.
Welcome everyone, I'm Jai Sugrim, and today I have the pleasure to sit down with Walter Powell. Walter, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited that you're here. And Walter has a really interesting story. He has lived and is stepping into 2 dreams that a lot of young men out there envision in their mind. Walter, tell us about realizing your first ambition, which was to make it to the NFL. What was that like to finally get on squad and be part of the real big lights showtime?
It was a blessing to start. I mean, just to, work on something your whole life, starting off at 8 playing, football and having that dream to play in the NFL and finally making it, when I was 22. I mean, it was just a blessing, but then that's when I knew that's when the real, challenge started. And that was just playing in the NFL because, during that whole time, growing up playing ball, it was just physical and relying on my natural talents. But as I, got into the NFL, it was more mental than the physical because everybody had the physical side, but what separated guys was having that mental side. So I really had to tap into just studying and really elevating my mental.
That's really interesting. I want to stay with that, but I want the audience to know that you also went in another direction at age 27 and left the NFL to pursue business and as an entrepreneur. And we're going to learn a lot about what it takes, the grit, the determination, the focus, and the perseverance to be an entrepreneur. But what made you shift gears and change directions?
I would have to say it was literally just a gift from God. I can't even lie, just because at that point in my life, just with football and everything, At a time I wasn't on a team for about 4 months, and that's the longest I've, not played on a team. So it just kind of, it weighed on me. But during that time, I started to do a lot of soul searching and really trying to figure out who I am, who is Walter, and just the higher version of myself. And just during that time, I started to, my best friend, been my best friend since we were 16, loved politics. And, always, we were living with each other, so he was just always breaking down politics to me into a way that I can understand. And, I was always having daily calls with my brother, and he asked me, what's your purpose in life? And it kind of like stumped me because I never knew, like, dang, what is my purpose? It was a deep question, and I just really had to think about it. So, that's when I really started doing all that soul searching. So I realized, like, man, I know I want to help people, but how can I help people? So as I started to just figure out who I was and getting myself aligned with God and aligned with my purpose, I realized, just the vision came straight from God, because my best friend, who's a political junkie, loves politics, and was always just breaking down politics to me into a way that I can understand. And it was one day we were talking about politics, and we were talking about a bill that got passed and how misinformed and naive we can all be to the whole process and understanding politics. And literally I had like a That's So Raven moment where I just stopped and I seen the vision of Politiscope and where it could be. So I was like, Jay, what if we created an app that broke down politics the way you break it down to me? And, we got online, couldn't find anything, looked in the app store, couldn't find anything. So I went to CVS, grabbed some printing paper, came home, drew it out how I seen it in my vision of Politiscope. And from there I knew, like, football was my passion, but it wasn't my purpose in my life.
Right.
And that's when I knew that Politiscope could really just make a difference for everybody.
Wow, that's such an interesting, when you say writing it into paper and then the journey to actual manifestation. I want to backtrack to what you were talking about earlier, because to make something in our mind real, we have to have what you were talking about, a mental game, because that's not easy. So many of us can have a great idea, but it goes nowhere because it's hard to take those first few steps. It's hard to put the money into it. It's hard to persuade your friends to help you in the venture. But let's travel backwards in time in your journey, right? What creates, like, I had a little mental game from my dad, even though I didn't like it, a lot of discipline because he's a military man. So I learned to wake up early. And once I got used to that, it served me in life. But at first I was like, 6 a.m. runs, feeding the animals on the farm. It just wasn't, where did you get that desire for the mental game that did give you the edge as an athlete? And I think probably the same mental edge that an entrepreneur needs is it's competitive. Your business can be great for a number of years, and then all of a sudden it can tank if you take your consciousness off of what it needs. So where in your life did that discipline come from? A figure, a family member? Did it come from a book? In your childhood, where do you think we get that mental game? Is it genetic?
I can say it's two just key points in my life that really helped me build my mental. One, when I was 10, I was up in Pennsylvania because my uncle was the college football coach, and he had me in this. They had this this summer camp for all the kids, and purposely my uncle put me in this relay with all the slow kids, and I didn't know they were slow. It was just like, okay, cool, let's go. And we were in dead last. When I say dead last, like we were super far back. And when I got the baton, I started running halfway. Then after that, I started walking. And then from there, my uncle being super stern and just how he is being a coach, like he told me to keep running. All the kids went off into grab lunch, and he told me to just keep running. And I literally ran for like 2 hours. And it's middle of the summer, hot, freaking. I'm sitting there crying. I got this 2XL T-shirt on. I'm 10. Freaking, he made me just keep running. Right. And then once he stopped me, he was like, why, I made you keep running, right? And he was like, because I quit. And he just told me, like, never quit no matter what the circumstances are around you, because it's about how you are as a person and how that will build you up. And from then on out, like, I never quit in my life. But then, like, once I got to college, like, when the mental really tapped in for me, is I started to watch videos Like I knew I love certain college football players, so I would like to watch their highlight tapes every morning because I get up every morning early too. But I watch these highlights of the same 5 players while, I'm sitting there doing my push-ups, and subconsciously their actions, their moves started to get embedded into my consciousness. And just like it felt like I took their moves out of the screen, and it was just I was starting to do these moves out of nowhere, and it was just like it just really took my game to another level, because tapping in outside of the physical and really tapping in on the mental side, it really helped elevate me and separate me, playing in college.
It sounds like what you're saying is like, so people see bright lights, they see the success, but rarely do we connect to the backstory, like that 2-hour run that your uncle gave you. It anchored something in your mind that was medicine for many other challenges later. People don't see usually the unglamorous side of like waking up early. There are certain days that an athlete feels like doing nothing. They feel tired, but you might have to still train in a lesser intensity. But really, speak to kids out there that are trying to succeed. Maybe they don't have that figure like your uncle, but about the darkness and the loneliness of getting to do something even when it's not your best day. Like that's consistency. I think the champions are made through consistency. Anybody can train on a good day, right? But what's it like to really be self-reliant? That's what I think a leader taps into, is that when everyone else is out partying, sometimes you have to work on Politoscope. You have to have a business meeting. Maybe it's not the best night on the social scene. Friday night, you might have to have a business meeting. What about those times in the life of an entrepreneur and a pro athlete?
I feel like the times when you're not in the limelight is when you make the best magic. And that's what kind of leads into the limelight and really magnifies what you do behind closed doors. So for me, like just really the work I put in, like I said, I seen it at a young age and really was able to separate myself. And by, of course, it takes a village to raise a kid. So I kind of learned a lot of stuff from my uncles, from my brother, from my mom being a single mother. But just, I used to just sit and watch and listen, and I always used to learn from people's mistakes instead of repeating the same thing they did. Like just learning from other people's mistakes. That's key to life, because if you know not to go certain directions, like you're just better off, and you just can elevate, and just being able to just do stuff that kids weren't used to doing. And I was always different, going against the grain with everything. Like even now, even as a kid, I knew I was meant to do more than just football. And I knew that, that was just the environment I was in. So I was, able to excel in the environment, but I knew deep down I was meant to do more, but I didn't know exactly what, until all those pieces kind of just fell into place. But it's all about just how you just, it's kind of hard because everybody's life is different, but it's all about just what do you want for your life? What do you want for your family? What do you want to just, how do you want to be remembered at the end of the day? And I kind of took that lightly. I took that to heart as a kid. How did I want to be remembered? Because like I said, I was just made different. So my mom always said, just, it's something different about you. And it's just,
it's important to realize that if you go with the grain, you may not achieve anything great. You need to hit that pause button. And sometimes when we're with ourselves, insight can drop in. I'm curious about, you're in a leadership position at a young age. Did that come naturally to delegate, to be at serious meetings? You're on major networks, or did you have some growing pains with the leadership part, at a young age?
I feel like it was definitely growing pains, because you see for me, I've seen a lot of just figures, a lot of leaders in my life. So I did a lot of following, but it came a point where it's like, it was time for me. I was in, just a group of people where it was time for me to lead, because they were looking to me to lead. So it was just like kind of just stepping into it and owning it. Because sometimes some people just don't want to be leaders. Sometimes they just want to sit back and just be with the crowd. But it's just that voice in your head is like, it's telling you like, it's time. This is your time to step forward and lead, however that may be. But it's like being a leader. It just I mean, you got leaders and you got followers, but I mean, when you feeling deep down inside that you must say something, must do something, you just got to listen to that voice in your head and just do it. And from there, I mean, shoot, sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think great leaders, in order to have that command in your voice, you have to be able to lead yourself. And that goes back to like getting a jump on the day, waking up early. Where do you think you get your work ethic from? You know, that internal drive. An entrepreneur is one who is self-motivated, someone that is a visionary, like you guys putting this on paper. You're connecting the dots with Jackson's expertise, and you're connecting the dots with an insight that you have. But you have to have something in there. Did you have a model that was for someone that was really driven?
I would have to say just my older brother, just because he played in the NFL. He was a college star. He was everything I wanted to be. So I always had that chip on my shoulder because I wasn't as fast as him. I wasn't, the best athlete, but one thing I did, I worked my butt off. And that's what really separated me from other people, was working harder, going that extra mile, just doing them extra routes. And I feel like once I understood that's how I operated, I was able to transfer that over into the business realm. For me to just continue to be effective is by continue to just work harder and do more, doing what other people won't do. So if it's like I got freaking 5 meetings in one day, some people, all right, after that last meeting, I'm gonna call it a day. Matter of fact, if I'm in a certain area, I'll hit somebody up and be like, hey, you want to meet for some coffee real quick. Just continue to plant those seeds, because people only plant seeds for seeds. Like people, I mean, I'm not gonna say people, but more so, people plant seeds, just in one spot, just hoping, they'll be able to harvest. But for me, my mentality is I want to plant seeds all year round so that I can harvest all year round. And, it's just like shooting. More shots you take, the more likely you're going to make shots. So that's the same with just planting seeds, connecting with people, and being able to just figure out just how you operate in that business world.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You're in a deeply embodied physical connection to your instrument, but you're also using the same elements of excellence from the physical world in a psychological world, a mental world of business. And I know you and I are both passionate about high levels of performance, and this is characterized in society. Scientists would call this a flow state. It's like when Michael Jordan's in the zone and every shot he throws up just keeps sinking, the bucket looks this big, he is performing at his best. And as an athlete, you know how to trigger that, and I'd love for you to talk to kids out there that are coming up in sports and they're also focused on their academic life. Like, what are the elements of flow from just using your body, using your breath? How do you trigger flow? And then when you're like at a business meeting, how can you try to hook into that again so that when you're in flow, you don't have to think, you just know what to do. It's almost like time dilates, and it's a hyper reality, but it's a state of excellence that I think many, many people in society are capable of, that only a few tap.
Yeah.
So can you tell us like what you do to get into that flow, and when you're in it, how it works through your body, and then how do you bring it to business?
So from the physical standpoint, tapping into the flow, it takes repetition.
Okay.
It takes studying. It takes, like, coming from a football perspective or just an athlete's perspective, studying your opponent. If you understand, and then on top of that, if you understand fully what you need to do to be effective. So for me, like, especially in college, because I was just in the flow OD in college, like it just didn't make no sense. But what I did, I studied my opponent a lot, but at the same time, I ran 100 routes. Like I used to run, like after practice, I used to run 100 routes after practice, whatever route I needs to work on.
And that's extra work that the coach didn't require you doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did more just because I knew what it took to tap in. So running those 100 routes, studying my opponent, studying body movement, studying if I catch the ball right here, I know he's going to come down right here, so I'm going to turn this way. And it's like once you start to tap in and calculate stuff at a certain level, then it's like it just slows down. So once I got into the game and I caught a pass, I caught a quick screen, I know where everybody's flowing. So I know
got the patterns hyper calibrated from the repetition.
And then everything just out of nowhere, it starts to slow down. And then when it slows down, like it would feel like I'm in the Matrix, because it's like everybody's just going super fast past me, but I'm just like this, just moving slow past everybody. But it's just like, and then it's like, sometimes it's hard to describe, but it's like once it's all done and you cross the end zone, it's like, wow, this is crazy. But then when you see it on a highlight, it's like, I can't believe I did that.
Right.
But it's all about instinct and knowing, building that awareness. So taking it over into the business world, it's definitely different, just because it's not physical. You're not tapping into physical like that. It's more so mental. But just being able to understand who I'm meeting with, being able to see just certain things that trigger them, as far as how to talk to them, for certain ways just to go about the conversation to get whatever's desired, the desired outcome. More so, everything's coming pure of heart, never just, trying to get something. More so is just understanding the person and being able to connect on another level, to be able to elevate it from a business to a relationship type of standpoint, and just really just connect on another level.
What I heard there from both, the correlate underneath both of those worlds in sports and business, was preparation. You prepared, you studied who you were having the meeting with, you studied all the possible patterns of running the play, and when you're there, you can surrender to what is required of the moment, because it can be unpredictable, and you need to be on your feet, and that's what flow does, is it puts us in the present moment, and so much can come from the present moment. And I think in today's world, like with Politoscope, the work you and Jackson are doing is to try to clear away. We live in the age of misinformation, right? And it's like we can get so turned off by politics because there's so many channels giving different points of view on the same subject that it's confusing to the mind. You guys are distilling it for us and making it in a way that we can have dialogue. Like, can I, even if I didn't vote for Trump and my neighbor voted for Trump, rather than attack my neighbor at this time, I don't think the planet needs more division and more vituperation and hurling statements back and forth. If there can be a way to have dialogue with someone who's very different from you, that's really crucial right now. So how do you guys think what you're doing can create that dialogue, and what is your take when you meet someone who has opposing views as you?
First off, like when somebody has an opposing view, I never judge them off that, because I don't know where they come from. I don't know how they were raised. So you just got to understand, you got to meet them where they're at. Okay. And that's just thinking from just a higher level. And with that being said, like with Politoscope, we're straight down the middle. So our goal is to bring people who are on this side, who are on that side, who have these strong opinions, and bring them straight to the middle with the facts. And being able to come to the table and have, a good conversation without having so much emotion and having so much hatred behind it, and just understanding like where their point is, because who knows, like it may be something you may agree with on, how certain views, but at the same time it's like you just got to understand like this is the facts, and that's what it is. And if you don't like the facts, then there's something wrong with you then, because this is what it is. And that's what Politoscope is. It's a player profile app for politicians that breaks down and explains every bill a politician votes for or against in a layman's terms. So just showing all that objective media, being able to track polls, track elections. You can donate to politicians, you can register to vote, you can see all their tweets, you can call them off the app, and just really just bringing a platform to where it's just information based and not so biased. Because I feel like when it's biased, that's where you can feed on emotions. And with this, it's just straight facts, emotionless, and you just love it for what it is.
And we can look at the facts and make decisions that where a unity, we are one people, we are sharing one planet, and it's a time where as resources start dwindling like clean water, we need to solve these problems together rather than have more wars over resources. One thing that's fascinated me with you, I've met you about a year ago, and I know that spirituality is a part of your life, and most young people feel shy about talking about God and their spiritual practices. But I believe that if you look at this body, we're young and healthy now, but one day this body, no matter how much working out we do, this body is subject to time. It's subject to decay. It's subject to injuries. I've healed a few injuries in here. And you identify yourself with something more than your body, even though you're at the peak of your youth and your physical presence that hasn't declined. If you're comfortable sharing with our audience the power of that identification and how it motivates you, because as an entrepreneur, there are days where you're doubting, is the money going to come in? Are we going to reach our projected numbers for 2020? And you have to face that doubt. But if you're facing it with just your mind and you're facing it with your body, I think that's just a part of you. If you have faith, the power of faith, or if you see yourself as a person that's truly a spiritual being, you can overcome those voices of doubts. Because even people don't understand that even the top performers have doubts. They think they just see the highlight reel, and it's like, no, that guy was wondering if he'd get on stage tonight. He was anxious, like, you know. So how do you feel yourself as a spiritual being, and how do you let that guide your actions as a businessman?
So for me, I feel like if you know, I feel like for everybody, people should understand this. Like, God did not put us on this earth to not be successful. And when you just understand that as a person and just how you're moving in life, it's like no matter what you're facing, like, yo, I'm my back against the wall right now, but I know I'm gonna get through this because God did not put me on this earth to not be successful. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, it's like, once you know God, you know yourself. And once you know yourself, you know your purpose. And everything just becomes clearer to you, and everything just starts to fall into place once you understand who you truly are and that you're connected to the source. So once you understand that, no matter what trials and tribulations, especially in business, because stuff happens every day. Like, that's just what it is. Just from the mental, like, it just happens. You know, you have ups and downs, but you got to understand that, like, that's a part of life. Life isn't supposed to be perfect, because if it was perfect, what's the point of living? We have to experience all emotions to have that experience. And I feel like if you're not, you have to experience it all to truly live, so that you can appreciate life and appreciate the people around you, just to the fullest.
What I'm curious, though, is you and I know that truth, right? So for me, I wake up and I clean myself, I have a tea, and I meditate to bring me back to that point. And then maybe later I'll do a yoga or a run. But I feel like if I do that in the morning, I can remember that truth, even if something crappy happens during my day. Do you go to church? Do you pray? Do you meditate? For kids listening at home who are intrigued by your mental process, what is the thing that you do to anchor your mind to this spiritual reality, to motivate you? Like if you know there's a disruption in the business plan, what do you do?
So repetition is always key. And I'm finna tell you guys a secret, just to keep, just so that you can just always have that mental anchor on whatever you go through in life. Just having that spiritual protection, that spiritual understanding that you can always get through it. So in the morning, like I was telling Janet, in the morning, I get up 5 a.m. Sometimes if I'm feeling myself, I get up at 4:30. But I get up in the morning, I pray for 10 to 15 minutes. Whoever you're praying to is always just, it's detrimental to have that relationship, that spiritual relationship. So I pray for 15 to 20 minutes. Then from there, I meditate anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. Then from there, I read affirmations. My affirmations are, I am. Like, so I am confident, I am successful, I am going to scale Politoscope. I am a positive thinker, literally just embedding those I ams in my head every morning, every day. And then from there, I read my daily devotional. And then from there, I get on my Bible study call. But I feel like I'm OCD, like that. I can't leave the house without that protection, because it's so much negative energy just in this world. As soon as you step out the house, and as soon as you wake up, like, it's all this negativity that just flows into you, and you don't know where it's coming from. And that's why you just need that spiritual protection and understand yourself, and being able to constantly build yourself up throughout the day to just be protected.
That's an incredible sequence. Like, I can just imagine how that habit forming thing is going on, so that you're internally positioned. When we're internally positioned, we can choose how to respond to the world rather than seeing the world as coming at us. It's kind of coming from us. And if we can choose a response other than anger and retaliation, that prayer, that meditation, those affirmations give space, because if someone attacks us and we come from our ego, it's like this, right? And it just creates friction. But if we can come from a breath, we can choose something other than the automated violent response, which I think culturally we're habituated to. If you watch the video games and the movies, your brain by 15 has seen like 30,000 murders, just that, and it's just you feel like this.
And that's why that's the main thing. It's like, just for everybody, we have to kill pride and ego, because that's what really holds us back from just moving forward. And even just not responding with emotions, and literally kind of seeing it from a bird's eye view, because everything has different perspectives to it. It's all about, like you said, how you receive it, when things are coming at you. So you really got to just see it from different perspectives. And when you see it from different perspectives, you're able to have just a better just take on the situation, and be able to come from a more peaceful and grounded just point of view.
Choice. It gives us choice rather than one response. We see possibilities. Right. I'm curious about another thing, because you're so into planning your day. In the longer arc of life, like, do you plan out like a vision of where you want to be in a few years? How far ahead do you look in your life plan?
I don't look too far.
Okay.
Just because God just tell me just take one step at a time. I'm a light the way, and everything that comes into my life, it's for a purpose. I know that since I'm walking in purpose, everything is happening for a reason. Every person that comes into my life is, a lesson, is a lesson, is a blessing, but it's all about just how I will respond to it. So I just literally take everything, just a week at a time or a day at a time. Just depends on just how everything is flowing. But I don't look too far ahead, because when you look too far ahead, you're not focused on the future. You're not focused on the now. And even when God gave me the vision of Politoscope, all I seen was where it was at. I didn't see, the steps in between. He just gave me the vision down the line, and I'm right back here. So now I just got to take everything one step at a time as it comes, and just being able to just react, and just not just be so, because I feel like when you look too far in the future, that's when you get anxious. That's when all these other emotions start to come up, and next thing you know, it's throwing you off on what you need to do for the day. So just focus on what you can control, and what you can control is the now. Can't look back or forward.
Yeah. Young people listening out there are curious about how to build a student-teacher relationship, like the role of a mentor. Personally, I thrive in my life by always keeping friends that are like a few years younger than me, and some that are at least 10 years ahead of me, because one tip they give me can save a ton of energy. If there's a young kid that has an interest in a field like entrepreneurship and wants to start their own business, like, how can they cultivate a relationship with a mentor? To speak about how, because the person that is the mentee can sometimes see the passion of someone that's young and see a vision of themselves. Like, when I have apprentices, I see, wow, that guy's hungry. He's going to do the work, and he's going to be listening. And in a way, I'm projecting myself in the future by lending my time and energy. And it's this beautiful energetic circle and reciprocal nature to it that is just heartfelt. But how does someone make that connection? And who were your mentors?
I feel like first, making that connection, it just starts with just being open and being vulnerable to reach out to somebody. Because I feel like a lot of times, just even now, you'll see people out, but they don't really want to connect until after, they leave. They'll reach out to you, email you, reach out to you on social media. But it's more so just developing that connection right then and there. But even for kids, for just all the youth out there, if you're looking for mentors, you just got to ask. Because at the end of the day, like, people love to help people. People who are genuine with just what they do, they just want to help. And especially if they, like you said, see something in you that they had in themselves, they want to help. So being able to just have those mentors, like young and older, you know what I'm saying? It's always just good to have around you. And that's why, for me, I've always surrounded myself around older people. Because even as a kid, I used to be right in my brother's back pocket the whole time, following him, doing everything he did. And like, just, matured faster, just because I was around older people. And that's just how I've always been, just because so much knowledge you can gain. So it's always about just, just seeking those mentors and not thinking you know it all.
Yeah. It sounds like when I listen to you that you're a master of not only time management, because entrepreneurs, the day can get sucked up meeting after meeting after meeting, and what you have to bring to these meetings is a vigor and energy. So you have to be a master of energy management. What are some of the health practices that you do to take care of yourself? Because without the energy, if you go to a business meeting and you're tired and dilapidated, you're not going to present well. People may not want to invest in, because they're investing in you and your determination and the positivity that you're projecting. Mm-hmm. What do you do with your health and your nutrition and things to just keep that vibe up?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it starts in the morning. Like, it starts what you do in the morning, even if you didn't get that much. Sometimes I don't get a lot of sleep, but I still make sure I get up at that time and still go through my just affirmations and just my meditations and prayer, because it gives me energy. It gives me that boost. But throughout the day, when it's a long day, I just take time. I just breathe for a little bit. I meditate and really collect myself and just, ask God for strength to, pull through if I am, mm-hmm. lagging a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's all about just, mental, mm-hmm. of course, definitely being able to exercise at least 2 to 4 times a week. I try to exercise at least 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. But, ever since I, retired from ball, I just, I focus more on my mental than the physical side, because I used to train 5 times a day. I mean, five times a week. So now it's focused more on the mental, but of course it's just about putting the right foods in your body, because you are what you eat, mm-hmm. and just, sound mind, sound body. So, yeah.
And the interesting thing is, when you get to a level of mastery within yourself, is learning how to say no politely. For example, knowing when to leave a party, knowing when it's time to get your sleep, knowing who to keep company with. If you always go with everything that's being offered, especially in a place like you and I are in the New York area, mm-hmm. and there's so much temptation, it's so loaded with distraction, right? Speak to the, it's like there's so many options that we don't commit to something till the last minute. But how do you funnel especially someone that's in the light like you quite regularly, how do you decline the power of young people listening to strain and sift through a situation and go, this is good for me, this may not be good for me? Like, what's the compass? What's the system there?
If you have a goal, and if something doesn't align with that goal, moving it forward or getting closer to that goal, I think you shouldn't do it. And it's a balance to everything. Mm-hmm. But if you are super focused and you're determined and you want to get something accomplished, if it's not aligned with what you're trying to do, then you shouldn't do it. Just because, that's just how I operate. But if you don't operate like that, you're going to get the results you're looking for. So it's all about just, balancing everything. Is this aligned with my purpose? Is this aligned with the goals I'm trying to accomplish? And for me right now, if it's not aligned with Politiscope, I try to just stay away from it, because I've been in that light, of partying all the time, and, New York, coming in and playing for the Jets as a rookie, and it's a lot. And, that's probably why we was losing a lot. So it's like
it's a lot of options.
It's a lot of options. Yeah. So just being able to just be mature and just understand what you're trying to get done. It may hurt mentally a little bit, physically, I can't go out, but mm-hmm. you think your body, your mind, your goal will thank you in the long run. Like, I'm glad I didn't go out the other night, because now I got this and this done. So prioritize.
Listening to you, I do think about, I do this trick of time travel, and I look at myself at a really old age and I wonder, did I use my time properly? Like that pain of seeing what I could have been and could have done, and God's given ability, like that would hurt more than these things that are tempting me now. Do you ever time travel?
Oh yeah, hands down. Just because I always put myself on my deathbed.
Yeah.
Just about just all the aspirations and dreams and everything. Like, did I accomplish that? did I get it done? Did I leave a legacy? And for me, it's all about legacy. And did I do what I needed to do? Because I don't want to have any regrets when it's all said and done. I just want to go peacefully and just, let it be. But just being able to just shoot forward just for a split second to understand, like, you don't want to have that turmoil, leading into, the next life, you feel me? So just being able to just understand, like, yo, there's no better time than now, because, like, the body is, every day, as soon as we're born, we're dying. And that's crazy, like, if you realize that. So why not take advantage of that time that you can go out and connect and build whatever you're trying to build while you still got, the able body to do it.
Did you grow up with your father or have a relationship with your father?
Yeah, I had my father was in Arizona. My mom, we stayed in St. Louis, but my father was very much present.
So how far apart were you geographically?
I mean, shoot, St. Louis, Arizona, I mean, that's like 14 hours.
14 hours, right?
It's a nice little drive.
I'm asking this because as we wrap up here, I worked for 2 years at a high school with a lot of kids that didn't have a connection to their father. And I struggled with my relationship with my father until 25 years old because of that hyper-disciplined militaristic thing. I saw him raising me really strict as opposed to American kids, and I resented it. I didn't see the good in it. And, I think you and I should talk a little bit about the power of men supporting each other. And I think we're like trained to be hyper-masculine and not open up. But there's a space where men can really be vulnerable in front of each other and say, look, I'm struggling with this thing in my business. What do you think? Like the funds aren't coming in. We need each other, but we're taught to kind of clam up and that's not cool to open up to one another. And to me, that is a valuable space that young kids can learn, is to lean on each other and open up about their challenges, especially like if you don't have a father there all the time that you can lean on. And that's where a man's body gets a certain food, a nourishment from another man's body. And that's what I am as a yoga teacher for a lot of young men out there, is they're getting nourishment in a clean masculine energy. So what do you think about that for young kids coming up, that space of being men but being open about their feelings and what they're vulnerable about, instead of trying to always oust each other and ball and be tough?
So with my relationship with my father, my pops, he had 10 kids. So as a kid, I didn't understand that, hence why I was always acting up in school. My father was present, but he wasn't as present as I wanted him to be. But fortunately I was blessed to have, my older brother and my uncles around me to really just help pick up that slack. But, as I got older and matured, I realized, I'm like, man, my pops had 10 kids, but he was, spending time with everybody, and that takes a real man to really do that and, be present in all his kids' life. So I really, as I grew up, I started to respect that about him, that he's out here trying to be a present father for all his kids. So for me, that just took me growing up a little bit and understanding the situation he in and not looking at it from a selfish point of view, because we always look at things from that I perspective, when it's not, when you got to just understand every situation, what's leading to this situation. So it's me being able to understand that made me just love him even more as I got older. So just being able to just have that relationship, and even if you don't have your father present in your life, like, seek mentors, seek father figures, seek older brothers. Even if you don't have older brothers, seek a man that's doing something positive to help just elevate you and just feed that part of your soul, that you're missing.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. Walter, thank you so much for sitting down with us,
Thank you.
giving us so much real information, and your personal journey is something that can lift a lot of people up out there. Thank you for coming on
Thank
the
you
show.
for having me.
Yeah. For you guys at home that would like more information on Walter Powell, please go to motivationstv.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch more exciting guests from our show. Thank you. Our next guest is Grammy-winning legendary hip-hop music producer who got his start working with Big Daddy Kane and Miles Davis, and went on to become affiliated with Bad Boy Records in the label's early years. He was heavily involved in the production of Notorious B.I.G.'s debut album, Ready to Die, which peaked at number 15 on the Billboard 200. He also produced songs on Tupac's album, Me Against the World, which was certified triple platinum. Later on in his career, he crafted songs for Wu-Tang Clan, Sean Price, Wiz Khalifa, and Alicia Keys on her 5-time Grammy-winning album, The Diary of Alicia Keys, and many more accomplished artists. He became well known for his ability to skillfully produce music across different genres, working with hip-hop, R&B, and jazz. He has been quoted as saying, "Don't be afraid, don't worry about the way the mold fits, go with your heart, be yourself, do you." Let's give a warm welcome to Easy Mo B.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Janet Miranda, and I have the pleasure to sit down with Easy Mo B. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
You're welcome.
Really excited to chat with you about all of your journey, and how you succeeded in the music industry as an entrepreneur. But first, before we do, for those folks that are not familiar with your work, what do you do?
Well, I'm a music producer. I'm also a DJ. I'm also a drummer. I started that way as a little boy in church, playing drums.
How old were you?
Playing drums in church, I was probably like about 10, 11 years old.
What made you choose drums?
I love the beat. I love the beat.
And that later inspired you to make some music.
Yeah. I guess I picked it up from my father. He was a man of many records. He always had a lot of albums, 45s stacked high in the corner in the living room. And
Hold on, for those that don't know what 45s are.
yeah, a lot of people today don't know what 45s
So tell the world,
are.
what are 45s?
Well, with records, there's the 7-inch records that spin at 45 RPM, revolutions per minute. And then there's the 12-inch records that spin at 33 1/3 revolutions per minute.
You know a lot about records because you store a lot of those guys, right?
Yeah, but he would play everything from Motown, soul, a little bit of funk. He was an older man, so he wasn't into the disco and stuff like that, but really soulful gospel, jazz, a wide array of music. And that's what I picked up as a little kid. And first it started as a love of the music that he was playing. Little did I know that I would end up making music of my own. Yeah.
And not just making music, but living your destiny and being a successful entrepreneur in the music industry.
Exactly.
And I want to know a little bit about the whole music experience. We're going to tap back into that. But as an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, you've been running your own brand of Easy Mo B for the last 30 years.
Yeah, Be Mo Easy. It's my name backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how did you survive it as an entrepreneur that's taking care of yourself, leveraging your business, your relationship, making sure that you can pay for everything and succeeding as someone who doesn't have income coming in from a corporation that's paying you a paycheck? Because you started in Con Ed.
Yeah, yeah. And it was a heartbreak. I remember the day, February 1st, 1990, when I resigned and I walked off the job. And I actually asked my foreman, I was like, if it don't work out, could I come back? And he was like, yeah. Well, I never had to come back, but managing the whole thing of being an entrepreneur, a business owner, it has its ups and downs. You have to ride the wave, and you just have to make sure to be strong. You have to be prepared. For me, in my opinion, there's no options. There's no options, in other words, in terms of quitting. I always looked at it like straight ahead. And what makes it easy is music is something that I love. So, you don't picture finding music hard. Somebody that works a 9 to 5, they're like, oh, you don't got nothing to worry about. It's just music. But no, it's a lot deeper than music. It's business, managing your finances, things like copyright, publishing, getting up and getting there on time, like I got here today early on time. Something is a big major accomplishment because there's so many meetings, so many schedules, so many places to go.
And discipline.
Yeah.
So having that discipline every day to get up and go. Because
Yeah.
there's really nothing stopping you from just chilling for like 7 days and doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right? There's no boss over you that's telling you you have to arrive at work at this time, et cetera, et cetera. You're making your hours technically. You're making your business succeed based on your actions.
Right.
So if you don't work, you don't get money.
Like James Brown said, you don't work, you don't eat. Very simple.
So being in the music industry, your hours tend to vary, right?
Yeah, it's never ever on a fixed schedule, never ever.
So with that being said, how do you find balance in just being sane and just living a healthy lifestyle for yourself?
A minute ago, I was going to touch on that, but I didn't want to interrupt you. You know, with the insertion of social media, the internet, we used to just have cell phones, and the cell phones didn't have the text feature, but now you got texting, email, social media. So people are always beep, 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 and you got to manage it.
So how do you manage it?
I turn the notification beeper off.
And that keeps you
No,
sane.
but I'm constantly looking and checking, but I'm joking, but I'm serious because otherwise it would drive me crazy. But there comes a time when I get so aggravated, I just kind of smile and I'm like, you know what? You asked for this. You asked for this.
Speaking of you asking for this, did you envision yourself being this legend? I mean, for those that don't know, you produce some really major music. Can we
Yeah.
talk about some of the music that you've released into the world?
Let's do that.
Let's talk about some of your best, favorite, memorable moments in the studio and just some of the titles of the songs.
Okay. I think at the top of the list would have to be working with Miles Davis, the legendary jazz trumpeter. He passed away in 1992. But being in the studio working with him, and I had always heard that, and I mentioned James Brown earlier, but he was kind of like James Brown. I heard the stories of how he used to whip the band together and scream on them, curse at them, whatever. So when we were together in the studio, I was waiting for that to happen to me, but it never happened to me. He took a great liking to me. I consider that to be the highest on the top of everything that I've ever done, even over Biggie, Tupac, Busta Rhymes, Alicia Keys.
I mean, those are some really big
Nothing
names.
personal, but yeah.
What
but,
were some of the songs that you produced with these artists, like Miles Davis, Alicia Keys?
with Miles Davis, it was the entire last album.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
Song after song. And what was your experience like with him in the studio? I mean, he's a legend, you know.
In the beginning, he was real formal and all about business, but towards the end, and this was the last time that I saw him, his girlfriend had came by the studio. I'm not looking at you because I'm like back in the room.
That's
And
okay.
I'm seeing it.
Bring us back.
His girlfriend came by and he had a couple of, his manager, a whole bunch of people in the studio, and that day he just seemed to let loose. We were recording out in the control room, me and the engineer, and you can look through like a glass over there, and that was the booth. And he was in there, he lifted his shirt up and he was...
Did he have abs?
Miles was in shape. Miles was in shape. Yeah, he did have abs. Yeah. And he was just in great spirits the very last time that I saw him. And believe it or not, I was glad that was the last way that I saw him.
What an
Because that
experience.
was out of character for him. He was not the type to be laughing or joyful or anything like that.
but you were meant to have that moment with him.
Right.
And speaking of meant to be, I mean, your journey with some of these other musicians, you just kind of fell into the meant to be, like your song about Cali. That was a meant to be situation, especially.
You're talking about Notorious B.I.G. going back to Cali on his second album, Life After Death. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, at the time, the East and West Coast thing was going on. And what's crazy is I always felt like I was placed in the middle because I worked with Biggie and I worked with Tupac together and separately. Separately and together while they were friends. Got the records done on Biggie, got the records done on Pac, and it seemed like seconds after, then they start doing this, like going at each other. I'm like, oh man. So by that time, it was time for recording of Biggie's second album. And I said, what can I do in a way sort of to try to like bring everybody back together in harmony, even if it's just get everybody on one accord with a beat or a song. And I had no idea that he was gonna title the song Going Back to Cali. So I did my research and I asked my manager at the time, my manager Carlos at the time, I said, in LA, in California, I said, what is that song? I said, in New York, like that one song in the block party and house parties that gets it jumping is Love Is the Message by MFSB. In California, in LA, what is that record? And he said, More Bounce to the Ounce by Zapp. So I said, I'm gonna use that because I could reach them. You know, that's like one of their favorite songs. So recorded the song, and Biggie had left to go out to LA. This is just before he left us. And so one of his friends from Junior Mafia walked into the deli right there at Fulton and Washington, not too far from here.
In Brooklyn.
And he saw me, he said, yo, what's up, Mo, what's going on? I said, you back home? He said, I came back, Biggie and them back out. He said, they're having so much fun out there. And this was in the midst of the East-West thing. So my thing is like, how could he be having so much fun? He said, he laced your joint, that beat. I was like, oh yeah? He said, yeah, he called it Going Back to Cali. I said, no, no. He said, no, he didn't disrespect them or nothing. He said, when you hear it, you're gonna love it. And when I heard it, it was, he titled it Going Back to Cali. I remember getting off the plane in LA. I had to make a trip out there. And the call car, a Lincoln that was taking me to the hotel, when I got in the car, he had the radio on. And the song came on.
Oh, gratefulness.
And I was like, they playing it. So it worked. Even if just musically, just to get everybody on one accord, you know, I'm about peace, man, in any kind of way. And if we can do it through the music, yeah.
I mean, that's a beautiful story, but that's so strategic as a business person to map that out, plan ahead, talk to people, do your research, and actually try to bring people together in a way of aligning harmony.
Research, I'm sorry.
No, so that your relationships could continue to blossom, and so that your business can continue to blossom, right?
Yeah, research, I was gonna say, is really important. Like, before working with Miles Davis, I sat and I went through his catalog and just listened to the music, in addition to stuff that I already knew. My father, he had one Miles Davis album that he used to play and that was Miles Davis live at Carnegie Hall. The orange with the green horn on the front. And that's all I knew as a kid. I had to go out and like do digging and buying vinyl, buy my own records and do my own research, but it helped me. And by the time it was time to work with him, I felt like I was knowledged.
But who taught you to do that? I mean, through innovative options like that, like just putting something creative together for Miles Davis and having to do that research. Did someone mentor you along the way? Where did you learn those skills to actually go back and do that research?
Well, I look at it like not just if you were in music, in art, or say like you're a designer in fashion. You have to do your research. That kind of thing wouldn't be allowed, say like in the fashion world or the art world. You couldn't come into the fashion world and not know who Halston, Yves Saint Laurent, am I saying it right?
You say that right.
Any of the designers. If you came in and you didn't know who these people were, they would kick you out. So the same thing in the music business. What helped with me is I loved music from a little kid on up, just always buying, and I was always reading the records. I know we're in the downloading and the streaming era, but I always read the back of the album covers. I always wanted to know who's producing and the personnel, who played guitar, who played the drums and keyboards. And I use that as a way. A lot of times I'll buy an album, never heard it, and I look at the personnel. I say, who's playing? And they have Eric Gale on guitar, Bernard Purdy on drums, Joe Sample on keyboard. I say, yeah, buy that. That's gonna be good. I take it home, it's good.
So you mapped out your strategy.
Yeah.
And how important is it to kind of know your audience, know who's listening to your music?
Well, you can't make people love you and the music that you're making. The only thing you can do is just be your best. I would say also to try not to be a jerk.
What does that mean?
Not to be so plain and simple, but I'm very serious about that. Like, be likable, be decent, be upstanding. And I always tried to be that.
But do you feel that some of your own spiritual practice helps you guide that?
Oh yeah, something that was instilled in me at home from a young age, from the teachings of my mother and my father and their strong belief in God. That's embedded in me. That will never ever leave.
And do you feel that maybe that helped you along your way, along your journey?
Oh yeah, that's like 80% of me. Strong part of me. That guides me through life. That's my inspiration.
Faith.
I don't wake up every day feeling like I did it.
Faith, I mean, it's super important to have that connection.
I'm a vessel, and I feel like God has been working through me.
But what about relationships? I mean, God could put you in the right place at the right time and give you the skills that you need to be able to manifest the greatness and become the legendary producer that you are. But unless you have those relationships, they say that it's tough to get ahead.
Right.
So how do you manage that as an entrepreneur?
That goes back to not being a jerk.
So, and I understand what you're saying, but how do you begin those relationships before you can even show whether you're a jerk or not? How do you just, for those out there who just want to know, like, okay, they want to be the next Easy Mo Bee, but people may think, well, Easy Mo Bee has a lot of relationships, and that's how he gets his business.
Well, now we have social media, we have the internet, all types of ways for people to communicate with each other. But for me in the beginning, back then, we didn't have all of that. A lot of it was literal on foot, going to meetings, going to Sony and Columbia and Def Jam in Manhattan, having face-to-face meetings with people. And even when you don't have a meeting, just drop by. Hey, what's up? What's going on? What y'all recording? And that's how I got a lot of work.
Just dropping by a studio, unsolicited?
and record companies, radio stations, people you know, keep in touch with people. Today, all they like to do is this.
The technology has certainly changed.
Yeah, you can do a lot from here, but nothing beats a face-to-face every once in a while. Those are skills that I learned even before I came into the music. Like when you go to an interview, look your interviewer straight in the eye. You know, be able to hold a conversation. Who's gonna believe you or have confidence in you if you can't even look them straight in the eye? So little things like that that I took, that I learned along the way, and used them to communicate with the people in the music business.
So when did you get your big break?
My biggest break came, first of all, I want to talk about Rapping is Fundamental, a group that I was in, starting around 1987. Shout to AB Money and JR,
AB
wherever
Money.
you are. Yeah, and you know them.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. We started out as a group in the projects here in Brooklyn, Lafayette Gardens. AB Money in the group used to go to Sarah J. Hale High School with Big Daddy Kane. So he was always telling Kane about me, like, so yo, you need to check out my man Boob. Booby is
I know, it's your
the
nickname.
family nickname.
Yeah.
That's what they called me on the block. You need to check out Boob and his music, and Kane would like push him off, and finally, at the turn of the making for his second album, finally we met, and he's like, let me see what you got. And that's when I landed Another Victory and Calling Mr. Welfare, featuring Cool DJ Red Alert on his second album. Got my first 2 tracks on the album commercially. Made my first $3,000. I was like, yay! And then I took that $3,000, and $3,000 would be like an insult today.
Well, back then, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. But I tried to be smart. I took anybody else from the projects in Brooklyn would have took the $3,000 and went and bought like leather jackets, sneakers, even if you could have bought a used car with that money, whatever. I took that money, and they're not there on 48th Street in Manhattan anymore, but Sam Ash, I took the $3,000 and went straight to Sam Ash, and I bought a SP1200 sampling drum machine that I always wanted, that was gonna help me do the music, and I'm still using that machine to this day.
So you reinvested back into your business.
Exactly.
And how important is that, like through like the entrepreneurial pursuit, like when you actually make some money? Because it's hard to start getting that money in as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
And when you finally get that momentum started, how important is it to reinvest, as you just said, back into your business?
Well, I got that first piece of equipment, and then I noticed for what I do play a little bit of keyboards, and I told you I play drums, but for the sampling aspect, the SP1200 could only do but so much, so I needed a couple of other units. I bought an Akai S950. It has all this sampling time in it, and that's what I needed to add on to the 1200. I bought that, and then as you go on, anything that you need to help you accomplish that sound, to accomplish that part of the business that you're doing, your music, well, you need to buy it. So it's just a constant investing into your system, adding this, buying that. Some things change, some instruments, but most of the stuff that you buy, you can use it forever or until it conks out.
Your career path start as a rapper.
Oh, we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I laid the microphone down a long time ago. AB and JR, they constantly trying to pull me back in, but I'm like, no, it's over. It was fun. I was only supposed to sing. The idea when AB put the group together, he said, I have an idea I want us to do something called doo-hop. I was like, what is that? He's like, doo-wop mixed with hip-hop. Prefix do, suffix hop. Now, I'm gonna jump ahead just for a minute and come back. When I did the Miles Davis album, I took prefix do and put suffix bop from bebop and made the title for the album.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because I used to ask him, like, we do a song, and I was like, what are we gonna call this? And he said, I don't know, name it, call it whatever you want. So he ended up letting me title the album too. But being in the group, I was only supposed to be the producer, DJ, and if they needed background singing for harmony. And then after I started singing, he said, yo, boo, we need another rapper too. I think we should all three rap and all three sing. There's no group like that. It's like, oh, okay. I put my first rap together, and the way I remember it, my first rap was, I was still living in the projects, and you know, it wasn't easy over there where I was living at. And it was a summer night, and it just sounded like there was madness going on outside. Like, I don't know, people throwing bottles, psh, psh, you hear the fire trucks going by, you know, might even started shooting, I don't know. And it just all came down on me, and I wrote a rhyme. I put all the frustration into that rap, and that was the first rap that I ever wrote.
And it's interesting that you, again, were working on your brand, but you redirected your energy into something else. And what was it that came into your spirit, into your mind, that redirected you into a whole different other avenue that made you the legend that you are today?
You're talking about for the rap, or?
You stepped away from the rap game and
Right.
became like this legendary music producer.
Yeah.
Had you stayed in the rap, who knows what would have happened?
I always had more fun producing than rapping. So I don't regret it. I'm happier producing. I've always been happier behind the scenes. So music is my thing. I feel like that's where I belong.
And the DJing is another avenue that you do for your brand as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the 45s, the little ones.
The ones that your dad had.
Yeah, and the big ones too. The
Oh.
33s, that I still spin those.
Old school.
In this age of digital technology, where DJs are using MP3s and digital equipment, I'm still playing the vinyl.
Even when you're DJing.
Yeah. Because I DJ nothing but classics.
Interesting. And so how do you balance all of the components of your brand, of the Easy Moby brand, the DJing, the creation of like the beats and the music,
Production.
the relationships, the checkbooks, the balancing of the bills, making sure that everything can get done, and you're a one-man show. You handle most of your stuff yourself. And so how do you do that? Is it like an everyday grind?
I pray.
You pray. That's a great
Yeah,
start.
for strength, and to be able to go on, and not just with that. You know, there's ups and there's downs. You know, sometimes money doesn't come in like you want it to. In the meantime, you still stay busy and stay inspired.
And we're going to talk about that too in a second, but getting back to your focus and making sure that you just get everything done and balanced, what does a typical day in Easy Moby's life look like?
Okay. When I wake up, first thing I want is some coffee.
Okay, and then?
That's the first thing I want. And then after that is while I'm doing that, is checking the emails and texts that
The
came in
notifications.
overnight. Gotta go check the DM and the Instagram. Facebook, I don't use the Messenger anymore for privacy reasons. I saw something on the news years ago that I didn't like, so. But check all your messages. If there's anybody that you have to contact, and call them, have appointment, go. If I have a free day with no appointments, I'm happy listening to records and trying to come up with ideas for the next bit of music that I can make. You know, a lot of the education in the process of creating and coming up with a beat a track is just listening. Sometimes I'll listen to an album, just say I'm listening to an old jazz album. I will hear something in that album that I don't even end up taking from that album, but it'll give me an idea in another way, maybe on the keyboard or to sample something else. So for me, the education is in listening. You know, I tell a lot of the younger producers that's coming up all the time, the biggest education in the music is just listening and scouring through the history of the music. Because I tell you, there's a lot of people out there, they don't have the patience to go back into we know about what we have today forward, but, and I guess it's kind of frustrating. I wouldn't want to be young right now and coming into music, because I would feel like, okay, we don't even have to go as far back as ragtime and like Cab Calloway and that far back. But even if it's just back to like the mid to late 60s era of music, like post doo-wop, if I want to know all that I need to know about music, and I'm young and I just came in today, I would feel like, wow, I gotta go all the way back and study all that stuff.
40 years worth. No, 60 years worth.
And then there's multi-genres. There's rock, jazz, hip-hop, soul, funk, disco. Lucky enough for me to be able to grow up through all of those different phases. It helps me.
What were some of the things that inspired you, or some of the people that inspired you to go into the route that you went to? You're specializing in R&B and hip-hop.
Other musicians. Isaac Hayes, as an artist and a producer. Barry White, as an artist and a producer. Gamble and Huff, Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff, known for their label. They were songwriter producers with their own label, Philadelphia International Records. They're responsible for his songs by the Lou Rawls, the OJs, the Jones Girls, Stax Records.
I mean, you really know your stuff. You know, you took a long study for all this.
Booker T and the MGs, Al Jackson Jr., Willie Mitchell, who produced most of what they used to call the high sound for Al Green. That's like the basis to my sound and the very thing that made me want to make music. And then in hip hop, it would have to be Marley Marl. That's my man. Jazzy J. Of course, Cool DJ, Red Alert. Herbie Lovebug. So many that I could name.
What are some of the moments that you can say you remember that really, they were just so close to your heart throughout your journey as a producer?
While in the studio, working with people. I remember when I was in the studio, actually wasn't in the studio, me and Biggie, we used to get in the car and just drive. Because, you know, he used to sell drugs out there on the strip right there. Before he made it, on Washington, between St. James and we used to get in the car and drive. And the song Ready to Die, I was like, yo, why did you say that, man? And he said, you know, I got a lot that I'm dealing with. He said, I don't really want to be out there. He said, my girlfriend, she got a baby on the way, and my mother, she's got cancer on her breast.
Wow.
He said, so Mo, when I say ready to die, I don't mean I'm really ready to die. He said, that's just an extension of everything I'm going through, how I feel right now. And I was like, wow, okay. So that just shows like that. People may know him or have seen him for a certain artist or a certain personality, but at that moment, I got to the closer side of him the more inner part of his being, something that others, I don't know, maybe he might not have shared that with him. And I was older, so I guess he looked up to me as like a mentor.
And speaking of mentors, and that's a beautiful moment, and it's amazing that you were able to be there for him, to
Yeah.
mentor him. Would you say that you had a mentor throughout your experience?
Let me see who mentored me. I didn't have too many people to teach me. I like to say Marley Marl was a mentor, but he wasn't there. I just studied every little thing, every little sound. I paid attention. When these guys would make records, I would sit and I would actually literally pick them apart with my ears. I say, oh, he's doing that, he's doing. And when I went down to 48th Street and bought that SP 1200 from Sam Ash, everything I had heard and every process that I had picked out that I had heard in their songs, when I came home, I emulated that and put my own touch to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do that? Because that takes a lot of dedication, a lot of time. And how long did it take you to do that?
Well, you take like Flavor in Your Ear. Rest in peace to Craig Mack also too. Flavor in Your Ear, one of the beats that people know me the most for. I went to sleep and I woke up. I tell this story all the time, but I woke up and I made the beat in my drawers, straight off the bed.
Hey, that's one of the privileges as an entrepreneur.
And like 20 minutes.
Wow.
And then there's other times where you'll be making a track or working on a song and you get to a point where you feel like you've given as much as you can give. You have to lay it to the side and come back to it. There's some tracks that I worked on, like Flavor in Your Ear might have took 20 minutes. There's other tracks that may take 4 or 5 days.
Like which ones took you for a spin, if you will? How
Yeah.
like which ones did you find that you had to put a lot of dedication and commitment into? A lot of time.
You take like Warning, as simple as it was, and it's a very sparse track. Warning is Biggie's beat on Ready to Die. I got the foundation for the bass and the drums, and that's all I had. I didn't want to go no further. I didn't want to mess it up. It's like, I like that groove, hold that right there. So we went to the studio, I took the main groove in, he laid the initial vocals to it, and after he laid the vocals, I was like, it needs some strings. So that's when I added the dramatic string parts in there. You can't find everything out like on the spot. Sometimes you find out more when the vocals are laid. And you say, now I know what it needs.
Speaking of these amazing records that you've made with some of these legendary artists, I understand you have a vault of secret music in your space of home.
I wouldn't consider it a vault, but tapes, songs, mixes that have never been released. There's a couple of things on Biggie, a couple of things on Tupac, some unreleased mixes on Miles Davis.
What were some of the...
Got some things.
Well, how could we hear some of those things? Will we ever hear some of those things?
Well, first of all, the estates would have to approve of it.
You see how politically correct you are as a businessman? Always the relationships, looking at the legalities.
Well, you can't just use other people's music, especially people who have passed away. They have estates, and nothing can be done before you get their approval.
And that's an important aspect to your brand as well, understanding the legalities of it.
Right.
Right? And that takes a little bit of time and dedication as well. And you seem to balance that very well. And you have a team that helps you balance that. For those people out there that are trying to develop as an entrepreneur and may not know that there are certain legalities, what kind of ideas or thoughts would you share with them?
Well, first of all, I would say build your circle and your family of people that will be around you to help you facilitate everything that you have to do. Mainly, that's going to be manager, accountant, publicist, if you can afford them. They can get very expensive.
Yeah.
Monthly. Manager, accountant, publicist, and anybody else that plays into the circle for what you do and help you carry out your daily duties. Because otherwise you got all this stuff on you to figure out. Now you don't have time to be creative and handling the business.
So there are times that you have to hand off some of those responsibilities to the people who have more education in them,
Right.
and who have more experience in them. And you're saying, yes, do that.
And then sometimes you can make use of good friends or family or people around you who have a lot of support for what you're doing. Say you get to the point where you're very busy. Maybe you have a cousin or a friend. They're always around you. Make them your assistant.
Use your family and close friends as resources. That's a really smart idea.
Why not, you know?
And put them in because you like the energy, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of energy, how do you manage energy? When you get into a room, can you feel a vibe right away? And I know you're a very spiritual person. So when you walk into a room and there's a vibe of some sort, how do you manage that? How do you make it work to your benefit?
I always learned, like, do nothing first. Watch. Watch. Don't jump in head first. Maybe there is a vibe in that room that will cause you to act, say, or do something in a certain way, but survey all that's around you first and always just remain calm.
It's really good advice. The other advice that I think is really important is, how do you say no to people? Like, I'm sure there are artists that are knocking your door down to try to work with them, and you're very selective in who you work with.
Right.
What's your process like? How do you rule them out? And then for those that you're not interested in working with, what's the feedback that you provide?
Honesty is the best policy. I remember I was in the studio with Heather Hunter, somebody who you would never ever expect to make a record. She decided to rap, and she's got some records that ended up becoming hip hop classics.
Wow.
One in particular she did with DJ Premier, but I remember we were in the studio in Unique. It's gone now. They tore that down in Times Square. Now they got the Paradise Club there and the hotel.
Is that 47th Street?
Right. She was rapping, and it wasn't good.
It wasn't good?
And I gave her my honesty. And she got so upset that she cried.
How did you manage that?
And it made me really, really fragile to the point where I was like, should you continue to be as honest like that with people? And I was just giving her my true critique about what I felt her rapping was. This is as far as like her cadence, how she was flowing on the beat. Anyway, years later, by the time she did the song with DJ Premier, I had seen her years later, and she said, you know, thank you for being really honest with me, because I never really told you. Yeah, it did hurt my feelings, it made me cry, but it made me better. Mm-hmm. And I listened to the song she did with DJ Premier, and to this day, it sits as a classic amongst all the rest. And I feel like I played a part in that just from being honest.
Yes, and the journey of being on the path with someone while they're becoming who they're becoming and discovering them as an artist and discovering them as a human being, the fact that you played a role in her life, making that change. I'm interested to know who, in your experience, has played that same type of role for you.
Not anybody that I can remember offhand, like per se, but I remember making music and going back up to the labels and presenting it, and you're on your way up there and you're so happy, you think you got something, and they shoot you down. And like, nah, well, can you bring me something else? I'm not really feeling that.
Ooh.
And you got to take on this really, really tough skin, this shell on the outside. Not to say that you're not an emotional person, where you become like, I guess like,
Detached.
yeah, you can't get to that point, but you can't let people hurt you so much that you can't go back to the board, which is what I did, and redo it. Keep trying. What I'm trying to say is when I came in, people weren't nice to me. And when my stuff got shot down, I would go back and I would try again.
How many times did you go back?
I'd go back as many times as I had to.
Now, the rejection part of it, as an artist, as a musician, how did you feel about someone saying that about your music? Like, this is something that you created, and then someone just shuts it down.
It's their opinion, but in the position that they hold and that they're sitting in, say like up at the record companies or at a radio station, it could be involving a mix or whatever. You have to go back to the board and you have to recreate.
Okay, and that didn't stop you from continuing as a musician, as an entrepreneur in the music world. It didn't stop you.
Quitting has never been an option. It was either that or going back to Con Edison.
Now, you started off at Con Edison.
And I didn't really want to go back there, so quitting was not an option. And I'm like, yo, you're doing the thing that you love. You're doing something that you love, which is music. Do it over. Do it as many times as you have to.
I mean, it's a really good attitude and a really great work ethic. Going back many years from like the high school, you went to a technical high school.
I went to, right in this area in downtown Brooklyn, George Westinghouse High School.
And your thoughts of going to a technical college, right? Becoming a voice jockey for Kingsborough or something was something that you were thinking about?
Actually, my major in Westinghouse was electronic servicing. Before even having the thoughts of making it in the music business, I was training, starting in Westinghouse, to be an electronic technician. That's what I wanted to be. And when I got the Con Ed job, which was in my opinion, the closest thing to that, that was it for me. But something inside of me is like, I see more, I want more. And I know I always loved music, and it started with the DJing and also the producer capability, the production capability. And Big Daddy Kane, when I got the shot with him, that was just the inspiration for me to go on, like, go full on, like, take it up full time.
And you've been in the studio with so many of these great legends. I mean, like Busta Rhymes. Like, what was your experience when you first walked into the studio with him, when you first met him?
You know Busta. Some of these people you don't know, you're just getting to meet them, and then some of them, they're your friends. And Busta was a friend, so that didn't feel tight and constrained. Like, that was like fun.
So when did it feel tight and constrained?
Whenever he would tell me to take it back to the board or shoot something down, and you're like.
And how was that, receiving feedback from your friend?
I guess it's pretty much like the same kind of honesty that I imposed upon somebody else when they ask me. People want what they want, so you can't say anything about what other people want. If they want a certain thing and they want it a certain way, then it's up to you to achieve that.
Well, you touch upon something really important. You're basically a business of service. You serve other people with producing for them what they're looking for. That sound, that special niche.
But I do have a bit of integrity. I do have a bit of a limit to how far I will go. I won't do anything.
So where is that? What measurements do you take? Like, what when you say you won't do just about anything, Can you give us some examples?
I'm not really not really in love with a lot of the music right now. Not everything, not all of it. I won't say in particular any artist or genre, but let's just say, like, you can't get me to do anything, and I've always been that way. I consider myself a leader. I'm not a follower, and you can't just buy me. I do what makes me happy. I do what I feel like continues to add on to the legacy or the discography of what I've done so far, and I don't want to do things to mess that up or to destroy that. So I have a bit of integrity when it comes to that.
So you're picky about the music that you continue to produce.
Right.
And
artists that I work with.
and artists that you work with. So if someone that you know, a friend of yours, comes into your studio and says, hey, Mo, you know, my friend over here is a great vocalist, great musician, and you hear them for the first time, you're not just letting, and you don't like them, you're not just letting the artist have that candid feedback, you're also sharing that feedback with the relationship that you have with whoever that friend is, right?
Right.
What's that experience like?
As usual, I'm going to be very, very honest. And if I can, I'll offer constructive criticism. Maybe there are things in the voice. If it's a producer, maybe I'll make suggestions in the making of the track and the instruments or the mix, the arrangement. But at all times, I will always be honest.
I mean, it's very important to have that integrity for yourself and for other people, because they build a respect for you to really give them, keep it real, right? And really give them honest, candid feedback. Bringing it back to honesty and your spirituality and how you were raised and what was embedded in you. Did someone give you that gift and say to you, hey, Mo, you know, if you want to succeed as an entrepreneur, keep it real with people? Or is that something that you picked up through your experience?
I think I kind of learned to just always just be natural. Be
Authentic.
Yeah, be natural, be authentic, and just everything that you learned, everything that you that's dear to you about music, put that into it. Like coming here today for this interview, you know, because y'all have a contract that's like a record deal. So you have all these requirements. You know, they want you to dress a certain way, and I was kind of nervous coming here, believe it or not.
You nervous?
Yeah.
The legendary Easy Mo beat?
Yeah.
Do you ever feel nervous?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And I know you wouldn't believe it, but coming here today, I was like, yo, they got so many requirements, and I'm reading the contract. It's like this thick. It's almost like a
This is really good, honest feedback. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But I come here, and then I saw one of the earlier interviewees that you had on the couch, and then it just made me, I calmed down. And I said, you know what? Be natural. Be yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's really key in developing any kind of music, but any kind of business as well, because you want to attract, you want to put out and attract back that same type of authentic vibe, right? You don't want to have a bunch of fake people around you. You want to make sure that you attract good, authentic relationships.
Right.
And so, with that being said, you gave today a really nice little visual, nice little snippet of your day-to-day life, of the things that drive you as an entrepreneur. For those guys that are out there that are trying to succeed as an entrepreneur, doesn't necessarily have to be in music, just in anything, and succeed, what are some tips that you would give them?
Well, number one, for whichever aspect of the music business or music that you're about to enter into, I would suggest that they all do research. Remember, we spoke earlier about if you were coming into the business of fashion, art, or whatever, really understand the business that you're about to come into. Like, do research on it. Some of your favorite artists, some of your favorite producers. Maybe you just want to play a part in the music business that's behind the scenes on the level of a publicist, or even if you want to be an entertainment attorney, whatever it is, your favorite people, the people that inspired you the most? Like, study those people.
Yeah, you gave us some really good tips about being authentic, doing the research, getting your team together, staying focused,
Be on time.
be on time, be authentic,
Be early.
and keep it real.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sitting down with us and giving us insight on so many successful artists from the hip hop and jazz community. And you guys at home that would like more information on Easy Mobi, please go to motivationstv.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch more exciting guests from our show. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in and watching our show.
Tune in on our next episode.
And if you missed any of our previous episodes, be sure to watch them on our YouTube channel.
Be sure to follow us on all of our social media pages and contact us today. We'd love to hear from you.
Like us on Facebook and tell us your thoughts on our show by giving us a review.
Follow us on Instagram and leave a comment about today's show.
Tweet us what topics you'd like to discuss in the future on Twitter.
And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Hit that little bell icon so you can get instant notifications so when our exclusive content releases, you're the first to hear about it.
We cannot wait to see you there.